What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy, Dog Waters, and I'm back. Let me adjust this microphone really quickly. This is an episode of Inside Baseball, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the Fort Pierce Dogman encounter, the interview, some of the things that Blue and I talked about after the interview that just didn't make it into the interview. It was supposed to be a 2-hour interview. I kind of hammered the guy for like an hour and 20 minutes, and I could tell that he didn't want to go too much further, so I kind of killed it. And then we had a conversation behind the scenes, and I'm gonna go into a few of the things behind the scenes that I think are important, but also try and make sure I don't violate some of the personal things that this guy told me. But there are some significant things that he spoke to me about that I think will fill some of the gaps into the conversation that was in that interview. Let me start off by saying this. I believe 100% that not only did he see Dogman, but he saw something else that is even more freaky. In the interview, he said that the thing that ran across the screen wasn't Dogman. It wasn't the same as what he saw. And he clearly stated that he didn't know what the hell that was. It was unlike anything he's ever seen. Behind the scenes, we talked a lot more about the neighborhood and how people in the neighborhood were behaving. So when he did that Facebook Live, a significant number of people on that Facebook Live lived in the area. Since he's had his encounter, people are no longer traveling at night by foot. It's my understanding that that area is an area where you can pretty much walk to the store, walk to Popeyes, walk to various different places, but nobody is outside at night at all. Literally at night. At night, the only thing they're doing is hopping in their car and going where they need to go and come back. And if you don't have a car, then guess what? At night, you're not walking outside. He touched on in the interview that area with the boulders that he liked to sit down on and kind of smoke cigarettes and hang out. And we touched a little bit more into the poltergeist activity aspect of it behind the scenes, because I asked him, I said, hey man, have you experienced any poltergeist type activities, ghosts, demons, anything like that? And he went into saying that he saw a lot of different things. A lot. And then he went into a near-death experience that he had. And I think that plays a huge role into what's going on with him. In the interview, if you guys remember, I said a couple of times that, is there anything that you could have done spiritually, like candles lit, hexes, curses, hoodoo, voodoo, that would put you on the radar for these creatures? And he said no, and I believe him. He doesn't strike me as the type of person. He's actually a very, very godly man. Extremely confident, extremely cool, funny. It's just that this situation has kind of messed with his head a lot. But let me get back to the point I'm making. One of the things about people who have near-death experiences, people like Sean Graham, who is here on the Dog Waters channel, he's had his near-death experience, and he can vouch for this, is that once you cross that veil and come back, not only sometimes do you bring stuff with you, but you also attract things. Your mind is not the same, your spirit and soul is not the same, and you actually are a beacon of light that things come to check in on and see who you are and what's going on. Because you got to imagine, you crossed over, you're walking into the light, and then you come back. And things want to know, okay, well, what's so significant about you that you came back? And then certain things want to come to see if there's something you can do to help. I believe that has a lot to do with this young man's repeated encounters with that, not only that small, what sound like a Bigfoot outside the door of his house, that the Dogman, the image that was moving by the pole, how it stopped and glanced over at him and took a look at him. And then some of the other things that have happened since then that I'll let him disclose if he wants to disclose it. I really believe that his near-death experience plays a significant role in these paranormal entities being attracted to him. Now, if you listen closely to that interview, he said that he's been seeing things since then, but he's ignored them. And his stance now is, I see it, but it's whatever. He's not even interested in taking pictures. He's not interested in, even he's trying to ignore it and just say, okay, hopefully it'll go away and I don't have to be bothered with it. Which to me is a wise thing. He hasn't felt threatened. He hasn't felt like it wants to harm him, but he does feel like he's being watched. Significantly, like really being watched. So I think that's something that, I know that's something that you guys didn't hear about because he didn't discuss it, but it plays a huge role into what's going on with him. Mentally, he's strong as of right now because I spoke to him earlier today. But at the same time, it's a lot for a person to wrap their mind around. And I've spoken to you guys about talking to eyewitnesses. And when you really talk to eyewitness that had a real encounter, it takes a very long time for them to go through the process and get to the point to where they accept it or accept what happens to them. And that what you have to understand is when a person experiences something traumatic like that, their life feels out of control, because now the one thing that we know that we feel that we know we have control over is our mind and our perception and context of reality. Well, once you realize that reality isn't exactly what you thought it is, but you can't grip it, you can't hold it, you can't change it back, there's an extreme sense of loss of control. And that's where he is now and kind of working his way through it. He's staying strong, keeping his head screwed on tight, and keeping busy, keeping family around, and trying to do what he can do. As I discussed with him today, it's a part of the process for a witness to go through. Is you have to get to a point of peace where you can accept the encounter, accept what happened, and find peace in this new existence, realizing that things aren't quite what you believe. It's no different than a lot of the people who are going through the Great Awakening right now, and they're realizing that politics and things that they perceive to be normal are not normal. They're learning about pedophile networks and all kind of crazy stuff, satanic rituals and things of that nature that have gone on for years. They didn't know about it. And so it's a shift of context in your mind, and it's a difficult adjustment to make. And when I spoke to him today, I said, hey man, just don't let yourself be in denial. Don't let your mind get to the point to where it's like, oh, I didn't see that, because now there's no control there. You're just blocking it out. And if you see it again, now you got to go through this whole process all over again. It's best just to accept that you saw something and keep it moving. That's the only way to handle it. Hey, I saw some freaky weird shit. It's foul and messed up, and I don't want to see it again, but I saw it. And that's how you keep yourself from going to the crazy house. And along with, being careful who you talk to. But that was one of the most significant things that he talked about, was the near-death experience. And then some of the other things that he saw that I really want him to say in a second interview. I'll see if I can get him to do a second interview. Another significant thing about the interview that I don't know if you guys picked up on is when the guy from the Wildlife and Fisheries came out and took the photos and then had those photos analyzed. That's the key word. The photos were analyzed, and they came back and they said that there was some form of unknown primate that he captured in the picture. So we know these photos have been analyzed, and it's been analyzed by someone within their department, and we know that they know that there's something there, which is why they turned around and came back out and did their own investigation, but couldn't find anything, or told him they couldn't find anything. I refuse to believe that they didn't find any evidence of anything. You combine that with what other people in the area have seen, from shadow people with hats, ghosts, everything else. I think you really have something significant going on in that area, and I kind of touched on it during the interview. And based on the information I got in the interview, I figured that someone in that area was doing magic, and I'm still kind of standing there on that ground that I believe someone in that area is practicing magic. But when it comes to him in particular, I think that is everything to do with his near-death experience, because it was life-altering and a life-changing experience for him, and it was something that happened about 4 or 5 months ago. So this guy has a lot going on, a whole hell of a lot going on. One of the other things that's kind of getting him at this point in time is just the sheer amount of attention that he's being hit with, because there's no way to prepare a person for seeing that, and then the aftermath of the amount of attention, people trying to talk to him. For example, I connected him with the people from the Travel Channel because they wanted to talk to him. So he's talking to the Travel Channel about his evidence and what he experienced. And then there are YouTubers reaching out to him. And then there's fake YouTubers reaching out to him. And then there's Facebook groups reaching out to him because they want him in a group because they want to collect him like he's a prize. So the guy has a lot going on. And again, I'll just say to you guys listening to this interview or listening to what I'm saying, you got to let the person process what's happened. As of right now, he's definitely not looking at releasing the pictures. If he's going to do anything with them, they'll probably go to the Travel Channel. I don't blame him. He'll be compensated for it. I don't see anything wrong with that. But a big part of that is it's better for him to give it to them and take a check or get some kind of compensation than him release them himself. And now he's got to, everything kind of gets stirred back up, and he goes through the process of people asking him questions over and over and over again and hounding and harassing him. So it's probably better for him to handle the situation that way. It's safer and it's more convenient, and then there's some compensation on the table for him. So overall, Blue is doing extremely well. He's a super duper interesting character, and what I mean by character, he has a great personality about him, and a good spirit and a good soul. And I think he's going to be fine. I really think he's going to be fine. I just think it's going to take time for him to get to a point where he is okay. But overall, it's one of the most significant pieces of Dogman evidence that we've captured on film. And then his picture is probably one of the clearest Dogman pictures. That one picture that he put out was probably one of the clearer Dogman pictures that I've seen and that anybody's ever seen. It's not like a blob squatch where you're circling trees and saying, oh, there's something in a tree right there, and you're trying to circle the tree. It's not like something hiding behind a tree where you gotta freaking zoom in and you might see a snout. This is clearly photo of a freaking Dogman there. Now I want to address something else. One of the things that's going on is people are contacting him and saying that you need to move. You're in danger. They're going to get you. I wouldn't be staying in that house, and all these different things. You got to understand, every person who has their encounter, they are genetically programmed to detect danger. And if the man is sitting there saying that he didn't feel threatened by it, then the chances are it wasn't a threat to him. Now, there's some Dogman witnesses that I've talked to who say, hey man, I felt threatened. I felt like I was going to die. And that's different. And it's different encounters. Now, sometimes the perception of that is kind of misconstrued, whatever the word is I'm looking for, excuse me. Because a lot of the stories that you hear are the frightening, scary Dogman encounters. Why? Because that's what pretty much sells, and that's what people kind of want to hear. But there are a lot of Dogman encounters that are a lot like his, where they see it, it reveals himself to them, and lets them know it's there, but it doesn't bother them, and they don't feel threatened, they don't feel worried, they don't feel afraid. So that's a segment of the Dogman encounters that happen that's valid. There are non-threatening Dogman encounters. Linda Godfrey was the number one person when you start talking about non-threatening Dogman encounters, where people encounter Dogman and he goes the other way. Just over the past couple of years, you hear more of these super duper frightening Dogman encounters, and things kind of get jumbled around and truth gets mixed in with fiction. But there are those Dogman encounters like his, and I'm thankful that that's the type of encounter that this young man had, because if he had something more terrifying, I don't think it would have been good for him, his family, or anybody else. I don't think he would have been able to stand for some of the other encounters where it's at your window, scratching on your window, or God forbid that weak door that he has to the backyard. That door looks like you could blow it down. So it's a great thing that he had that type of encounter. So stop trying to scare the dude, and let him go through the process of kind of getting over this whole thing. It's really, really important, because at the end of the day, if you want to get anything else out of the guy, it has to be done that way. You got to give the man his space. You got to give the man his room. You got to give the man his space. You got to give the man his room so he can process everything that's going on, and everything that's happening. Now, he did touch on the fact that there still are those SUVs riding around everywhere with presidential tent. That has not been on a downtrend. It's been consistent, to the point to where everybody in the neighborhood is noticing it. And I'm trying to figure out who that is. I think I know who it is. But again, in his case, they're not even being threatening at all. So it's a positive experience for him overall, because it could have gone terribly, terribly bad for this young man, considering how everything happened, how quickly the information was disclosed by being on a Facebook Live. And if you guys don't know, all of that Facebook, Twitter, YouTube stuff is monitored constantly for this type of activity. So it's going pretty well. I mean, it's going extremely well. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to anybody else who lives in that household with him. I've had multiple conversations where there were people there, and I'm working on talking to other people in that neighborhood so we can get more information. I'm working diligently on that, and soon I will have more information from people in that neighborhood about their perception, how they feel about the neighborhood, how they feel about what's going on. Because I've encouraged him to turn around and talk to these people, because now when he's out, people will pull him to the side. Hey man, what was that thing you saw on your Facebook Live? Was that real? Was that a fraud? Blah 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 blah. I told him, listen man, when they start asking you those questions, turn around and say to them, look, have you seen anything? And try and get information from them. Just verbal jujitsu on them, and find out if they've seen anything, because most of the times people are afraid to talk about what they've seen. And it's better if he knows somebody else in that area who's seen something weird or freaky. Like he said, there was a girl a couple of doors down that saw something, and then behind the scenes, he talked about some other people in the neighborhood that said that they had seen something, but he couldn't get them to elaborate. So I'm going to go and start working on that more, to try and get more people in that neighborhood to share the information about the encounters that they're having. I want to get to that roommate and find out what happened with the roommate. I want to hear it from his own mouth. And so we're doing a deep dive on this encounter. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow the spider web to the middle and figure out what's really going on. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take a little bit of energy. It's probably going to take a little bit of money. And that's why, again, I want to thank the members of IamDarkWaters.com. You guys make this possible. By your monthly contributions, you allow me to do these things in a manner in which I can pretty much guarantee you nobody else is doing or really willing to do. The industry standard is not to do the things that I do, but I'm not really an industry guy. I'm just that guy that's trying to get it done, So, with that being said, that's the end of the Inside Baseball, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. The NDE was the most significant thing that we talked about, and with I don't want to go into everything that led up to the NDE, and I don't want to go into the things that came out of the NDE, like some of the things that happened right afterwards, because I just don't feel like I would be violating this man's personal trust by talking about that. So I think it's okay to talk about someone having a near-death experience. The other things that he shared with me, I want him to tell you himself, and I'm going to get him to tell you himself as soon as he's comfortable sharing that information with you guys. And once we expand it out, probably take about 30 minutes to 45 minutes to really dive deeper into the next portion of some of the things that he was saying. You get a better idea for his personality. You get a really, really good idea of who he is as a person, on a spiritual level, and you'll know who you're dealing with. I've said all the time, it's not about what happens. It's not about the Dogman encounter itself. It's about what happens after the Dogman encounter. That's the most significant information that you'll ever get from a witness, is what happens afterwards. What are the repercussions of having it? What are the consequences of having the encounter? What happened to the neighbors? What happened to your friends? How are people perceiving you? How do you feel? Those are some of the most significant things when you start talking about paranormal encounters. And that's why the stories that you find on imdarkwaters.com are so good, because I really focus on the whole totality of what happened to the person, and not just, oh, I saw Dogman and it looked scary and it had yellow eyes or red eyes or amber eyes and ooh, it's a lot more to it than that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Dark Waters. I'm out of here. Head on over to imdarkwaters.com and check it out. Peace.